And I've mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it the last time I was down in Australia. And by the way, if I was 30 years younger, boy, would I love to live in Australia. I just love Australia. I really do. Love Australia. I sit quietly on my own, crying, listening to I Still Call Australia Home. I mean, my heart breaks when I hear that song. It's just a fantastic song. I fell in love with that song, particularly in the kind of the middle 90s. But in particular, I was down in Sydney for the 2000
Olympics.
2000 Sydney Games. And, that was the Olympics, yeah, because I was on medical team for Ireland. And I just remember, of course, every year Qantas would do a new take on the song, and they'd use the national boys and girls, the Australian national boys and girls choirs, and then they'd fly around the world to different places, and it was just absolutely magnificent. And funny story is, I was getting on the airplane in Sydney to come home, and as I was coming up, we were being greeted by the cabin crew, and the manager of the cabin crew was there, and he said, I've seen you on TV. I said, did you? He said, yeah. He said, what sport are you involved in? I said, no. I said, I'm not an athlete. I said, I'm afraid I'm too old for that now. That was even back in 2000. I said, but no. I said, I'm on the medical team. And he said, all right. He said, listen, I have a bit of an issue, a problem. Could I have a chat with you about it? And I said, look, as soon as you get your job done, and as soon as we're in the air and you have a few minutes, come down to me. I said, I'd be happy to talk to you. So I got sitting in my seat with the rest of the team, and he came down to me, and long before we took off, and he was starting to talk to me about a problem he had with his shoulder, actually. And so I started, kind of asking questions and getting a sense of what was going on. And he'd had this thing for, I don't know, like a year and a half, 2 years. And so I started giving him some self-help treatment. I thought that was the best approach. And he was thrilled and delighted. So anyway, we took off, and as soon as we took off, he came down. He said to me, Mr. Sharkey, he said, would you like to come up to first class? And I said, I can't. I said, because I'm with the Irish team. If I was to go up to first class, I think it would look bad, So when we were landing, just before we landed, he came out and he had a bag of goodies for me and said, look, I just want to say thank you. And there was a President's Selection Wolf Blast red and white, and all sorts of other little goodies. And I'd been telling him about the Qantas, the advert, and he said, he said, I was involved in the making of the last one. And I said, oh, really? And we had a good conversation. So then the second leg, I think we went from, I think it was Thailand, and we had our second leg home. And when I was on the plane, the manageress of the cabin crew come up to me and said to me, Mr. Sharkey, and I said, hello. She said, how are you doing? She said, my name is Rebecca. And I said, hello, Rebecca, how are you? And she said, I'm the cabin manager. And she said, Lawrence from the last flight told me all about you. And, he said it'd be okay to come up and have a chat with you because I've got this wrist problem. Would I be able to have a little chat? I said, of course, no problem whatsoever. I said, why don't you wait until we're, in the air? No, of course. She came back to me before we took off. And I think I was showing her something like STRs or something, because she was complaining of something like what you might call carpal tunnel. So then we took off, and Rebecca comes down to me and says, Mr. Sharkey, would you like to come up to first class? And I said, I can't. I'm with the Irish team. It was unbelievable that twice I was offered first class and I couldn't. And again, when we were landing, she came down with a bag of goodies for me, more red wine, champagne, the lot. Which I shared out with the team incidentally, except for the Chardonnays. I kept them for myself. Yeah, but about 2 weeks later, in the post, a CD arrived. And it was a CD from Qantas, all about the making of the advert and the different versions of the I Still Call Australia Home song. I still have that.
That would have been more important than first class seats and everybody.
Yeah. So if you were the cabin crew manager on Qantas Airlines for in 2000, and you met me on the medical team for Ireland, because I don't know, I can't remember what his name was. I can't remember, but I just want to shout out a big thank you to the staff at Qantas who, were listening to what I was saying, and it just showed a beautiful side of the human race, us Homo sapiens. That guy went to the trouble of recording my postal details and going to the trouble of sending me the CD several weeks later. I just thought it was such a wonderful thing. Qantas were fantastic. So there's a long-winded story.
That's a good one too. I know quite a few people with Qantas, so I'll see if I can dig up the.
Oh no, somebody might try and say, "Hey, I was that guy."
Yeah, I know, that's so funny.